The Radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, welcome everybody. The Yaron Brook Show on this, I don't even know what day it is. I think it's Tuesday, and I am in California. And a little bit of technical issues right off the bat there, but I think everything's set up now and we're all here. No audio. No audio. So no audio, guys? Can you guys hear me? Anybody hear me? Guys, can you hear me? You can hear me. I can hear. So don't do that. You know, somebody says audio is fine. Is sound good? Volume right? We've got a completely different setup today. So please let me know if the sound is good, if you can hear me loud enough. I can play around with a lot of different knobs here. Audio is fine. Everybody likes it. I'm in California. This is my setup in California. It's not as nice, I think, as the one there. And the left speaker only. I have no idea why left speaker. Left speaker only. Let's. That shouldn't impact it. I've got it stereo here. Let me just check something. One second. Settings. Hi, audio. It says stereo. Lighting is iffy. Lighting is what it is. Sound is good. No, I'm feeling fine. So my sound is good. So I don't know why it's only left speaker. Let me see if we do this. If that makes a difference. It says it's on stereo. Should be feeding everything out on stereo. Output. Sorry guys, always something. But this is a new setup. So and plus we're waiting for a bunch of people to join us. Hopefully a bunch of people will join. Any better now? All right. So you guys any better? Still left speaker only. All right, I'll have to research and figure out why it's left speaker only. We'll try to fix it for next time. I can see two speakers here running. All the mics. Okay, say everybody left only, same. All right, anyway, sorry about that. We'll try to figure out what's going on. Somewhere here there's a setting that I am now if I plugging and unplugging won't work. It's a setting in one of the pieces of software feeding it to YouTube, or it could be in Restream. Unlikely, but it could be in Restream. Let me just check on Restream. Live Studio settings. Let me just check this. Settings. Change. No, I don't know. All right, we're gonna let it go and live with it. So I apologize if it's left speaker only. It is. We'll try to live with it. Lighting isn't great. I try to get a light for over here. I'm not sure exactly where I can get it, but we'll try to get something going. I'm gonna be here 6 weeks. I wonder if I can change it to mono. I don't know if I can change it to mono. It won't let me right now change it to mono. It's kind of stuck on stereo. 2-channel audio driver. All right, we're not going to putz around with it today. For next show, I'll try to work it. So you guys deal with it. All right, so today, those of you who don't know, we have a challenge. The challenge is that if we get 500 likes while the show is live, which is like impossible, but that's the challenge, right? 500 likes while the show is live. We've already got one thumbs down, but we need 500 thumbs up. And I don't know if you'll count likes on Facebook. So those of you on Facebook, please go to YouTube. Those of you on Periscope, please go to YouTube. Those of you on other Facebook, please go to YouTube. So everybody, just basically go to YouTube and like, and then you can go back to your favorite platform to listen. But the idea is we need to get that like number up to 500, and if we do, I get $500. I mean, you don't get anything, but I get $500. So it's you know, it's an easy support for the show without you guys doing really anything in terms of your own wallet. And all you have to do is basically click on the like button. Now, I don't want you to do anything you don't believe in. So if you don't like the show, don't click on the white button. But if you do, click on the white button, and that would be great. So I appreciate that. Those of you who are joining us now, you know, I apologize that we're a little rusty here, and the reason is I'm in California. I've got a new setup, a different camera, different computer, different screens, different computer running this off a laptop. We'll see how all of this works. I will not sing, no matter what. I will not sing, even for, as I told Derek last time, even for $1,000, $10,000, you're not hearing me sing. My rants are as good as singing, if not better. So like, we at 99. We need 5 times the amount we've got right there, 5 times. So if you're on Facebook, go over to YouTube and click like. If you're on any one of the Facebook pages, if you're on Periscope, please go over to YouTube and click the like button. Let's get that number up to 500, and we get $500. So that was Adam Campbell's challenge to us, and we see if we can meet the challenge. I guess if I go 3-4 hours, we might be able to pick up enough people till we get the $500. So maybe that's the solution that we get up there. All right, today is a news-filled day. I basically stuffed the title with lots of items that are at the top of the news in the hope of getting more people. The clickbait basically is the story, and it's pretty lame clickbait at that. But so we're going to do a kind of a news update, and we're going to just run through a bunch of news stories, and don't forget, thumbs up, guys. We need to get 500. I'm going to bug you a lot today. I can't. Somebody says you should have done 250 for 250. It wasn't my choice. It's like Adam Campbell. You want to complain? Complain to Adam. He said $500 for 500 likes. That's the reality. I would have loved $100 for a buck for every like. That would have worked well. Or 250 for 250. 250 would have been a good enough challenge. But 500 is like nuts, unlikely to happen. But the unlikely sometimes happens. Yes, the unlikely does sometimes happen. So we're going to go through a bunch of different topics. I don't have a huge amount to say about every one of them, so we're going to go pretty fast around these. I've added some topics. So I do want to talk about, we've got a super chat here on the Israeli-UAE deal. We're going to talk about Belarus. We're going to talk about Lebanon. And we're going to talk, I've got a story about China, which I think is really interesting. So we are going to cover a bunch of different topics today, including a lot of foreign policy kind of deals or stuff that's going on overseas that is not going over in the United States. So I think it's all kind of interesting. And Super Chat, of course. So Super Chat is available. You know, if we don't get the 500 likes, we can always, you guys can always contribute to beat Adam at his own game and provide a Super Chat of more than $500. But Adam says, these videos are too good to not have 500 live. True, but where are they? So the only way to get 500 live is to go right now on Twitter, on Facebook, and everywhere else, and put lots of hashtags, like hashtags Fortnite, hashtag all the things that are sexy and going on right now, and that'll bring people over. The only way is to get people to come to us who don't typically show up. So we're going to do that. All right, we're going to start with this, Kevin. All right. Kevin says, hi, Yaron. Thanks so much for all you do. My grad stipend came through finally. So I just wanted to say thank you for all you do. Wow, $20. I really appreciate it, Kevin. I know that grad stipend is not a lot. All right, make Fortnite great again. No, I don't really care about Fortnite, and given their tactics, I actually now despise Fortnite. So you can put hashtag Yaron despises Fortnite. Come and listen to why, and we're gonna wait to talk about it so that we can get up to 500 people watching live or 500 likes in order to talk about Fortnite. But we're so far up to 132 likes, probably the quickest we've ever reached that number on a show. So let's keep it going to try to get to 500 likes. All right. Let's start with the Democratic Convention. I don't know how many of you are watching it. I'm not. I watch it afterwards or read about it, read the talks. I can't bear to watch these idiots speak. I mean, it really is fairly disgusting. But it's interesting because what is coming through is what the tactic is of the Democratic Party, and particularly of Joe Biden, for this election. And it's interesting. It's interesting, not unexpected, but it is interesting. So yesterday we had Bernie Sanders speak. Well, you'd expect that. You need to kind of get the left energized, particularly young people. Young people love Bernie Sanders. Go figure. I don't get it. I don't know if you get it. But young people like Bernie Sanders more than they like me, which is really, really, really insulting if you really think about it. But it's the reality. All right, we've got a question on Islamic immigration. This is good. This is good. We'll bring out all the controversial topics. All right, we'll see if how the computer handles all of this action. All right, we'll see. I remind me of the super chat question if I forget it, because I'm having a hard time copy pasting it because the computer's giving me problems. Video okay? Sound okay? Cool. So we got Bernie Sanders yesterday. We got AOC tonight. I'm not going to watch that either. And then yesterday we also had John Kasich. John Kasich, who ran for president as a Republican. Last election, ran against Trump, was the last man standing. I think even after Ted Cruz dropped out, John Kasich was still running against Trump and, of course, lost. We also had last night, we had Michelle Obama, who probably gave the most powerful, meaningful speech of the night for whatever reason. But so we had three people who represent three different aspects of the Republican Party, but really Michelle Obama is the one who brought it home. And Michelle Obama is also the one who illustrates what this campaign is really going to be about, what it's actually going to be about. So Bernie did his shtick, right? We need to change the system. This is our only chance. We got to change the system. We've got to bring about democratic socialism in America. We got to become like Denmark. Of course, I always say, I wish we could be like Denmark. There are a lot of features about Denmark where they have more freedom. This campaign is really going to be about what it's actually going to be about. Where's that coming from? So Bernie did his shtick, right? Interesting. All right, that was somehow Facebook got unmuted. So where did I do that? All right, we basically silenced Facebook, so I think we're fine. Anyway, all right, whatever. Yes, I'm throwing my voice. That was Facebook feeding back my audio to me, but basically I silenced it, but I can't find it. It was muted, and somehow I am muted, and I can't find the mute button now. But we will, again, these are the kind of quirks that we'll deal with before next show. All right, so Bernie, as I said, did a shtick. Democratic socialism, we need Medicare for all, we need all this. So he basically defined the left. You'll get AOC tonight rallying the left, and the extreme left of the Democratic Party will be rallied by those two. At the same time, we also have Kasich basically saying, what's Kasich's argument? Kasich's basic argument is Trump is so despicable. Trump is so bad. Trump is so horrible for everybody that even though I don't agree with Joe Biden, even though I'm not a Democrat, even though I don't agree with the Democratic Party on anything, you have got to vote for Joe Biden because we have got to get rid of Donald Trump. So basically, Kasich was there as the voice of the never Trumpers. As Trump is unacceptable, therefore we have to vote for Biden. And then Michelle Obama kind of brought it home. Somebody on the chat said she spoke morality the whole night. Absolutely. The whole case was Trump is unimaginably bad. He's unimaginably immoral. He's unimaginably not he's not altruistic enough. She talked a lot about empathy. He doesn't show empathy. And you got to vote for Joe Biden because Trump is terrible. It's interesting. She didn't make much of a case for Joe Biden. The case she made was against Donald Trump. And you will see that that's going to be the theme. The theme is going to be of the Democrats. Don't vote for us because who we are. Vote for us because we're not Donald Trump. And that is going to be much of what you see during this election. Joe Biden will try to propose as little as possible. We'll try to make as little as possible policy proposals. Because if he makes policy proposals, he either alienates the left because they're not going to be left-wing enough, or he alienates the right, or the independents, the never-Trumpers, the kind of moderates, because they're going to be too left. He can't win by actually articulating a case, by actually articulating an argument for what he will do as president. The only thing he can do, the only way he can win, is he has to basically do two things. One, to show he's not completely in a coma, to show he's actually alive and can actually think on his feet. So he'll have the debates to prove that. He hasn't done well in debates, among the Democrats. But, the debate with Trump is going to be pretty brutal. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles himself during the debates. I'll try to live tweet the debates. And then he will try to show that he's not going to do any harm and that he is not, that while he is conscious, he is capable, he is awake, he is not senile. Second mission is he'll try to show that he is not Donald Trump and that he's not going to commit to anything. The more he commits, the more policies he proposes, the less likely I predict it is that he actually wins. Right? So the more he talks about actual issues, the less likely it is that he actually wins. James asks, I've not seen one thing that shows what his policies will be. How do you think a debate will go with no policies? It is possible to win that debate. I don't think he has to win the debate. I think he has to show that he's alert, to show that he's alive. And it's not that he'll ignore policies. He'll talk about policies, but he'll talk about in vague generalities. He won't actually talk about specifics. He won't propose anything too specific. All right, sound went out. Robot voice. That's not good.
Okay, sound any better? Hello, hello, hello. Please fully plug in your external mic. It's all plugged in, guys. It sounds funny. It still sounds funny. Okay, what's going on? All right. In the meantime, those of you on, like the show, even though the sound
Is sucks. So sound, bad sound is still, no, it's the same. So decide, guys, is the sound bad or is the sound good? Like in a tunnel. You're perfectly understandable. It's tolerable. Tolerable is not good. So nothing's changed. My mic is fine. I think it's bandwidth. I think it's the computer slowing things down because for sound. So is it better? Even though the sound, it sucks. It's better. Just got better again. All right, let me see. I think I'm gonna shut. Yeah. All right, it's good now. All right, I closed some windows. I think it's processing power. That is, I think it's processing power or bandwidth. It's not the mic. The mic is a great mic. It's not a USB mic. It's a proper mic, high quality mic, high quality soundboard, high quality preamp. I mean, you're not going to get a better sound setup. I'm not saying it's all tuned right, but you're not going to get a better sound setup. It's either in the software or in the hardware of the computer itself. It's not in the sound setup itself. It isn't going through that mic. I'm sure it's going through that mic. It couldn't be going through any other mic.
There's only one mic, and that is the mic that's set. The settings are all on the external mic. Yep. Everything's going through the board. Now I'm on a laptop connected to a soundboard though. The soundboard, the mic is connected to the soundboard, not right here. Yeah, but I know my laptop has an internal mic, but nothing. It's that mic, right? You heard the tapping? All right, the tapping was on the external mic. So I've got a bunch of technical guys assisting me here. By the way, I've seen a lot of people have joined, and I know some of you have robot voice. You're still getting robot voice. I thought it would better. Anyway, a bunch of you have joined. Please like the show. We've got a challenge. If I get 500 likes on the show while it's live, then I get $500. So please like the show while you're here. Even if you don't like the sound and leave, you can come back another time. It's reverb voice. Like. I don't know. But it was fine before, right? It's bandwidth. But the bandwidth is good. Let me just check. All right. This is a new studio setup. New studio setup, new challenges. We'll have to figure this out. All right, I'm not close to the mic. All right, we are talking about the Democratic Party. Democratic Party has nothing to offer the American people that the American people actually want to hear. And as a consequence, the Democratic Party is going to avoid talking about the issues as much as it can. They'll have surrogates that go out there and say, advocate for the leftist ideology. That's AOC and Bernie Sanders and other people like that. But Biden is going to avoid that as much as he can. Yeah, again, he'll throw them bones. Green New Deal. He'll throw them a bone. But he's not going to make a big deal out of any of that. The big deal he is going to make is out of the fact that he is not Trump. That he is an adult. That he can run the country better. Right? And that is it. This is going to be not about the issues. I mean, on the issues, they don't disagree that much. This is going to be about who is more of an adult. And you saw that in Michelle Obama's speech last night. It's all about, the Michelle Obama speech last night was all about putting Trump down as an adult in the room. He's not an adult. He doesn't have empathy. He doesn't care. He's incompetent. He can't do the job. And that's going to be Biden's line throughout. And that's, if he's going to win, that's going to be how he's going to win. The leftist policies, the policies of the left, are unbelievably unpopular in the United States. You can't win on the policies of the left. You guys drive me nuts. So there's still a reverb, huh? All right. Don't forget to
Like before you leave. Before you leave, I see people are leaving. Don't leave. Don't leave. Like first. Let's get over 200. Let's get over 200, and then we'll talk about the post office. You want to talk about the post office? Right? Can you think of a dumber topic? But that's all people are talking about, is the post office. Right? All right, yeah, it's bandwidth for some reason. It's weird. All right, the bandwidth isn't stable. So it looks like it's bandwidth. 205 likes. 205. We're heading towards the 250, the halfway mark. Will this lead to splitting both of the parties? How do you persuade people who think with emotions in politics over policies? Mike goes in and out. All right. Yeah, it's bandwidth. All right. I'm not. All right. We'll work on this for next time. Jesus.
So I don't think it'll split the political parties. I don't think it'll split the political parties. Look, if Trump wins, then the Republican Party becomes his, and the never Trumpers have nowhere to go, and the Republican Party is just finished. There is no Republican Party anymore. If Trump loses by a little bit, there's going to be a war within the Republican Party, and the war would be between the Trumps and the kind of traditional conservative, traditional Republicans. If Trump loses in a landslide, then you'll get a Republican, the never Trumpers will try to reassert themselves. They have a much higher probability of winning. The conventional conservatives will have a much higher probability of winning than otherwise. So a Trump landslide loss is the only hope I think the Republican Party has to bring about the kind of voices that are more, not free market, but more free market, more pro-American, more pro-Constitution. That requires a Trump landslide loss. The Democratic Party, if Biden loses, then the Democratic Party will move dramatically to the left. That is, if both Hillary lost and now Biden loses,
then that will have proven to the Democrats that mainstream centrist can't win. And the next Democratic nominee will be a radical leftist. And the party will generally move to the left. So if Biden loses, what you will get is both parties moving to their extremes, moving to their more collectivist, more socialist, more authoritarian extremes. That's the cost of Biden losing, and that's why I've said over and over and over again that I hope Trump loses in a landslide. Not because I like Biden, I hate Biden. Not because I like the Democrats, I hate the Democrats. But because the future of the country depends on it. If Biden wins in a landslide, that means that the centrist wing of the Democratic Party has won. It gives the centrist wing of the Democratic Party legitimacy. And it says that the Trumpist wing of the Republican Party can't win. Maybe can win with Trump, but can't win otherwise. Wins once. Wow, the number of people who left the show because I said that the best outcome is a landslide for Biden is a bunch of people. As soon as I said that, just
just dropped off. And that'll prove that the Trump wing of the Republican Party can't win. And then the Republican Party will move to its more constitutional free market, wing, and the Democratic Party will move to its centrist wing, which long term is a plus. Long term is our only hope as a country. So that's. Joe asked, is there legitimacy to not voting because neither candidate is good, or is it refusing to choose nihilistic or evasion? No, absolutely. I think the only choice in an election like this is not to vote. Because, the candidates are so absurdly evil. The Democratic Party has turned and become so bad that I think it's completely legitimate not to vote at all in this election. You cannot vote for Trump. And there's a good argument to say that you cannot vote for Biden. So I don't know what I would do. I know I wouldn't vote for Trump, but whether I could actually bring myself to vote for Biden, I doubt. Luckily I'm a Puerto Rican resident, so I can't vote for president, and I won't. How is a candidate who thinks a man can become a woman is a centrist? And why don't you answer my question about Islamic immigration? Because it's off topic, and I'll answer it later, as I always do with Super Chat questions. How is a candidate who thinks that a man can become a woman a centrist? Most Americans don't care about transsexuals and don't care about people who want to convert and don't care about treating them as individuals. They care about bathrooms, they care about stuff like that, but they don't care about these issues. That is, whether you like it or not, that is today a centrist position. And I don't think Joe Biden thinks that. I think he has to say certain things about transgender and other things in order to appease the left wing as a political party. Now, I've lost the question on Islamic immigration, not because I don't want to answer it, but because the Super Chat will only allow me to go backwards so much, and I couldn't copy paste it, unfortunately. So if you write it down, not as a Super Chat, just as a comment right now, I'll answer it now just because I can't go backwards. OMG Puppy says, politics is downstream of culture. Just winning elections doesn't matter in the long run while the left controls academia and the media. That's true. But politics determine the rate at which we decline. The decline is determined by intellectuals and by academia. But the rate at which we decline is determined by politics. So the importance of politics is strategic. You're not, by voting, you're not determining the ultimate outcome. You're determining the speed by which we get there. It doesn't matter whether Trump or Biden wins. We're heading towards greater and greater authoritarianism. That's the outcome. And whether it's authoritarianism of the left, authoritarianism of the right, doesn't matter. You're heading towards authoritarianism. So the issue is how quickly, and is it going to be soon, or is it going to be a lot later? That's the driving issue, right? And here I think that, again, having a better meaning more centrist Democratic Party, and having a better meaning more founding fathers oriented, constitution oriented, free market oriented Republican Party will slow down the long run trend. But the long run trend is what it is. It is what it is. John, if you heard me, I said post the question again in the chat without a super chat, without any dollars, because I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know the nuance of the got you that you want to ask regarding Islamic immigration, because I'm happy to answer the question, and I'll do that now. All right. So I apologize, but I've lost the previous super chat questions because I can't copy paste them right now.
because of the tech. By the way, is the sound better? Can you guys just give me a thumbs up or down in terms of if the sound's better? Let me remind everybody who's joining us now, we've got a challenge. The challenge is 500 likes. 500 likes for this show, and we get $500. We're 221. So if you just joined us, if you haven't liked the show yet, please like it. Please like it, and that'll get us closer to the 500 likes. Some people say the sound is really bad. Some people say it's the same. It's fine. I get all kinds of stuff. Anyway. And the video is good, which is weird that the bandwidth would attack the sound before it attacks the video. That's weird. You're getting used to the new robot you're on. All right. Okay, did we get the question? Did somebody put up the question here? Can one of you guys go, if you can access the old super chat, the super chat from earlier today, and find the question that Peter asked about Islamic immigration, then I will answer it. But since I can't go back and find it, maybe you can. I don't know if yours allows you to go back or not, but I can't. All right. Yeah, video is choppy. That's what I expect because of bandwidth. All right. Don't forget again to like the show, thumbs up, and let's get us to 500 today. Post office, right? And then we'll do. Peter's disappeared, so I don't know if I'll be able to do Islamic immigration. So there was this big deal about the post office. The idea was that there was a new head of the post office. He was instituting all kinds of logistical changes to processes, shutting down certain lines, taking away certain boxes, all trying to, basically, he argued, trying to make the post office more efficient. Look, the post office is a disaster. The post office is a government institution that shouldn't exist. The post office should be privatized. There should be no post office. Why do we have a post office? Right? I know it's in the Constitution, but that's outdated. It shouldn't have been there to begin with. And we should just have private mail, private services. And because it's a government institution, it is not surprising that it is being politicized. The accusation is that all right. I don't know what you're talking about. It's not going through multiple mics. It's going through one mic. And it wasn't like this in the beginning, right? So you didn't get this in the beginning. There's no... one more check. So the idea was that Donald Trump was doing this because he didn't like oops, 1 second, let's just do sound here. Yeah, the internal mics are shut off for both. The internal mics are just not working. They're turned off. All right. The accusation was Donald Trump was manipulating the post office so that the post office wouldn't deliver vote by mail, because the idea was that somehow, and I never understood this argument, vote by mail is bad for Republicans, or vote by mail is more susceptible to fraud, and the fraud's going to be all Democratic. And as a consequence, he was trying to suppress mail voting, vote by mail, not mail voting as opposed to female voting, but vote by mail. Now, he said that he doesn't want vote by mail. So this is not just speculation. It's just that he doesn't want voting through the mail. I don't know why exactly. But I think the idea is if you suppress the vote, you suppress the popular vote, then
Trump feels like he has a chance. He also thinks that his people are more likely to go to the polls in spite of COVID than their people. So he is focused on trying to suppress mail-in votes. Now, I don't know if any of that makes any sense politically, but, Trump is good at this, so I assume he knows what he's talking about. So he does not want the mail-in vote.
And then this new guy comes into the post office and makes all these changes, and people go nuts because they assume that what Trump is doing is trying to rig it so even if there is mail vote, it won't actually reach its target. Now, it's impossible to say whether that's actually what's happening or not. But this is the problem. The problem is that the post office, being a government agency, is politicized by its very nature. It's a political entity. And anything it does, political motivations can be attributed to it. This is why, one of the many reasons why there shouldn't be a government-run post office, period. It should be privatized as easy and quickly as possible. Adam says the post office narrative is just his way of saving face and making the USPS the scapegoat. Maybe. He's going to claim that if he loses, it was fraud and the USPS was the cause of it. Now, what's interesting is that today, the Postmaster General, who Trump appointed, who was making all these changes,
basically said he's stopping it all. He's retracting everything. He's stopping. That he is not going to pursue the changes that he announced until after the elections. He says it was never political. It was always intended to make the post office more efficient. He comes from a business logistics background. He was trying to make the post office more efficient, more productive, I guess more profitable. It loses huge amounts of money. And he's stopping. So two things. If this was a ploy by Trump, it failed. And Trump backed off, as he often does. So here the insult starts. There's something pathological to be so against Trump. I'm not against Trump. I'm just describing the situation. Trump is manic, he is, about this mail-in voting. Is there any evidence other than anecdotal that mail-in voting is more fraudulent than other forms of voting? No. Look at the science. That's just facts. It's not being anti-Trump. Has everybody accused the Postmaster General of manipulating the post office to do
Trump's bidding? Yes. Everybody's accused him of doing that. Did he just back down and say he's not going to make the change until after the election because of the pressure put on him by the Democrats? Yes. All facts. Data. Now, I know the facts are often not favorable to those of you who love Trump. And therefore, the only thing you can do, instead of actually coming up with facts in opposition to what I say, is the Trump derangement syndrome anti-concept. That's the way you deal with disagreement, because you don't have facts on your side. All right, let's get to John's question. Even though you're making me rich, your $5 pathetic dollars are not making me rich, John. And other people's dollars are not pathetic. John's is pathetic because he can't wait in line with everybody else, like everybody else waits in line for the super chat. I've said in the past, in order to get priority, you have to go $20. But because I have a technical glitch, I'm going to answer his question because I won't be able to find it if I don't answer it now. So I don't know if John asked it again. Did he repeat the question? Did I see it? No, he didn't. He can't even follow orders. Instructions, not orders. He can't even follow simple instructions. We asked him to repost the question without the dollars. So he can't do that. right? But he is there.
Insisting. Okay, so Shazbah thinks that he recalls the question. He says, if Europe accepts Islamic immigration to the point that Muslims are in the majority, will women in Europe have a reason to be frightened? And my answer to that is, today, we should all be frightened. I'm not for Islamic immigration as long as we're at war with Muslims. When we win that war, when the war has been won, and when Europe commits itself to assimilation, the assimilation of all its immigrants, then I didn't see him reposting it as a $20 question. Where is that? Oh, there it is. Sorry, John, I didn't see it. You have said that in ideal circumstances you would support open immigration of Muslims into Europe, even if it turned Europe majority Islamic. As their countries turn Muslim, would women feel more safe or less safe? Well, in the ideal circumstances, they would feel just as safe as they do today. So, again, in the ideal circumstances, Islam as a political force is being defeated. Islam as a religious fanatical is being defeated. The West has regained confidence in itself. The West won't tolerate cultures that are antagonistic to itself, and therefore will demand assimilation, just as the United States did in the early part of the 20th century, or the late part of the 19th, early 20th century. Muslims who emigrate to Europe will be expected to assimilate, will be expected to become Western. And if they don't, they will be, discriminated against in private. As, again, people who didn't want to assimilate into American society were excluded in many respects from American society until they did. But this idea that all Muslims are rapists, or that when you're surrounded by Muslims, you should, women should be allowed. So I actually came from a country that had a large population of Muslims, which you have never experienced. That country was Israel. In the interim, how many people were abused? How many women are raped in Germany today, right? There was a period of sexual harassment. Now, how many people are raped? How many women are raped today? Why? Why did they stop the rapes? Because Germany stood up to the Muslims. I mean, the idea that Muslims are rapists is insanity and racist. It's just not true. I've talked in Albania. Albania's Muslim majority. Rape doesn't happen in Albania. And the Muslim majority in Albania is secular. I lived in Israel. Significant percentage of the population is Muslim. Over 20% of the population in the days when I lived in Israel. Palestinians used to come in to Israel on a regular basis. So I'd say 30+% of the population on a day-to-day basis in Israel was Muslim. Did rapes go up in Israel during the period? No. Why? Because Israel wouldn't tolerate it. The only reason that rapes are up in Europe is because Europe tolerates it. So this idea that all Muslims are rapists is just bullshit. It's just bullshit. I know it's only left speaker, it is what it is today. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure exactly how to solve the problem, but it is what it is. We will try to solve it next time. So audio is problematic. We're in a new studio in California. California doesn't like me, so they're sabotaging the show.
And that's how it happens. Yeah, you have rape gangs in England. Why did you have rape gangs in England? Because the police and everybody else tolerated them. Now, the culture is barbaric. But if you argue that the culture is barbaric, if you stand up for Western values and insist that you will not tolerate it anymore, then, the rape gangs don't exist in Israel. The rape gangs don't exist in
some Western countries. They did in England, and to a large extent it's because the English let it happen, tolerated it, didn't put people in jail. If you don't expect people to live up to your Western values, they won't live up to your Western values. I know the sound isn't perfect, but we've got stereo at least. So that's good. I fixed the stereo problem. And I didn't unplug anything. Plugging the GoFundMe YBS capitalist billboard campaign. Yeah, there's going to be a GoFundMe. Yaron Brook Show capitalist billboard campaign. We're doing a billboard for the show. And hopefully many of you will be able to help fund it and get it going, right? You have no right to decide who gets to live next door to you. You have no right to discriminate against people based on their religion. You have no right to discriminate against people based on their ideas. You can shun them. You cannot deal with them. You can argue against them, but as long as they don't do violence, as long as they don't violate rights, you have no right to use violence against them. You have to go to fundamentals. You have to go to principles. And the principle is individual rights. The principle is you don't use force against somebody else because of their ideas. If somebody commits rape, throw them into jail forever. Do that enough times and the rapist will stop. And if they know that's how you treat rapists, maybe they won't come to your country to begin with. But it's time for us in the West to stop blaming our problems on other people and start taking responsibility for them. We need to stand up for our values to the extent that we have shared values. We need to stand up against the enemies of civilization. And unless we do, you think the solution of building walls to prevent Muslims from coming into your country is going to save you? No, it won't. Because if you won't stand up to one barbarian, then the other barbarians will come. It's time for the West to stand for the values that it has, to crush the enemy that Islam represents, and to embrace liberty and freedom and individual rights. I mean, the fact is the West is not dying because of Muslims. America is not dying from Islam. Even Europe, Sweden, by the way, the country that didn't shut down, whose economy did relatively well, in spite of the relatively large Muslim population in Sweden. Sweden is doing fine. It's been a while since we had on the Super Chat somebody obsessed with the Muslim issue. But the enemy needs to be defeated. And once he's defeated, he's pacified. And that's true in war, and that's also true on criminal justice. If you tolerate bad behavior, you encourage it, there's going to be more of it. All right, let's see. Fortnite. I don't know.
let's talk about Fortnite. Before we talk about Fortnite, just a reminder to like the show. We're 258. We've got a long way to go still. We have to get to 500. 500, we get $500. So please, before you leave, or even not before you leave, right now, go to the like button and press like so we can get from 258 to 500 during this show, right? 258 in less than an hour. So we could make it to 500 if I go for 2 hours today. So keep going. Keep pressing that button so that I am encouraged to stay on and to try to get to 500 because... All right, Fortnite. Now, let me admit right off the bat that I do not play video games. That until this became a news item, I didn't know what Fortnite was. That Epic, still don't know what Epic is. I guess Epic is the production company that makes Fortnite the game. So, I am here talking about Fortnite. Not as an expert in games, but just to point out that Fortnite, unfortunately, the Epic, the company that owns Fortnite, is using antitrust laws, not the marketplace, not competition, but it's using antitrust laws in order to get its way. So here's what's happening with Fortnite, right? Epic added an option for Fortnite players to either pay it directly, Epic directly, to buy in the app currency to pay a premium to go through Apple. So you get a discount for using the in-app pay option, right? Now, this was supposed to get Apple to fold and to let them, because Fortnite is huge. Fortnite is huge. But what Apple has done is it's pulled Fortnite from the App Store for breaking the in-app payment rule. Now, Fortnite was completely prepared for this because immediately they launched a massive media marketing campaign to portray Apple as an authoritarian, dictatorial monopolist who was not letting the market work. By the way, they did this with Google as well, but they didn't launch the marketing campaign against Google. But both companies are being sued. So they did two things immediately upon Apple and Google withdrawing the app from the stores. They immediately filed a lawsuit, which shows they were prepared. And they immediately launched this impressive, massive, with amazing videos, campaign against Apple primarily, less so in Google. And the lawsuit is claiming that Apple is using its monopolistic, or Google and Apple are using their monopolistic standing to dictate to Epic the terms by which it relates to its customers. Now, this is just horrible. The use by businesses of antitrust laws in order to get their way, in order to circumvent the marketplace, is just horrific. And this isn't a little company. This isn't a company that's completely dependent on Apple. This is a company that has an agreement with Apple and with Google to be on their platform under certain conditions, which they clearly have violated. And that Apple and Google, in retaliation for them violating it, have withdrawn their apps from their platforms. There's no monopolistic, there is no such thing as a monopoly. We've talked about this many times. Apple is within its legal rights, and the only way Epic can win, this lawsuit, is by using anti-capitalist, anti-market, anti-entrepreneurial, antitrust laws. So Epic is undercutting its reliance on a market process for its own growth and its own success by using antitrust laws against other companies. Now, this has become prevalent, unfortunately, in Silicon Valley and elsewhere, that when you don't get your way
in negotiating deals, you instead try to get your way by using government force. And it's truly sad. Because I'm sure Epic's a great company and they've done amazing things and they've created amazing games and they're incredibly popular and you guys love them and it's all good. And yet they have to use antitrust to get their business outcome. They have to use the government. This is the essence of cronyism. So it's really, really horrible what Epic is doing. Stephen asks, I've heard the argument that Apple and Google app stores are public utilities. Do you think there's any rational basis for that? Of course not. How can they be public utilities? What is a public utility? I mean, in my view, nothing is a public utility. Somebody built it. Somebody owns it. Somebody has risk involved in the enterprise. Somebody created it. It's private property. The Apple store, the Google store are private property. It's private property that a lot of people utilize. But the fact that a lot of people utilize something doesn't make it public. It was created by somebody. And that creation, that building of something, gives that person property rights over it. Not to mention the money that was put into it, the investment. Apple owns the Apple App Store. Google owns the Google App Store. Because they created it, they built it, they made it, they funded it. They have every legal title possible over it. Public utility is just an excuse for the government to take over something that's private today. But there is no such thing in reality as a public utility. The public can't own anything. The public is nobody. Who's the public? Where's the public? It's not any particular group. It's just the public. So no, there is no such thing as public utility, and certainly in this case, you could make certain arguments. Well, you could make certain arguments about, you can only lay one cable in a road, so it's impossible to have competition because of the metaphysical fact that, I don't know. I mean, I have to make up arguments because I think there's always possibility of competition. But here, anybody could start an app store. The fact that Apple and Google have such massive footprints is because they're such successful companies. But you can compete with Apple and Google, maybe not successfully, but there's nothing metaphysically preventing you from that competition. So no, there is nothing, no excuse for viewing Apple and Google as anything but competitive enterprises that, where they have certain rules that you might not like. All right, Trevor asks, Yaron, is violence in society always unacceptable? Yes, violence is only acceptable as self-defense. It's never acceptable as something initiated. John follows up about the Islamic. Do you think Islamic culture is particularly disposed to violence against women? Why then should Muslims be allowed into Europe? I think some Islamic cultures are predisposed to treating women badly. I don't think, even if it is, for many countries, it is predisposed to violence against women. You don't ban people from coming into a country because of predisposition. Italians, when they immigrated into America, were predisposed towards the mafia, were predisposed to joining organized crime. That didn't mean any particular Italian was predisposed towards organized crime. Just generally the culture, particularly in southern Italy. If you came from Sicily, there was a good chance you would join the mafia. So we ban everybody from Sicily because some people from Sicily are predisposed? The question is, how do you deal with that predisposition? And the way to deal with that predisposition is, one, to actually enforce the law. Two,
to demand assimilation. Culturally to demand assimilation, not legally. To culturally demand assimilation. But look,
life is risky. There's no question that having a rights-respecting world in some dimensions increases risk. I've said this before. If you're afraid of risk, going outside and interacting with other people predisposes you to infecting them with COVID. So I guess the best way to deal with that is to shut us all at home. If you, generally men, in any culture, men are much more predisposed than women to commit rape. So maybe we should lock all the men at home. Rape will go down. People come from bad cultures. The people who tend to want to immigrate are the people who tend to want to reject their bad culture for a good one. And if we demand that they do, if we expect that they do, then they will. If we don't demand it, if we don't expect it, if we don't even tell them that, then they won't. Then they won't. Alex asks, but let me again say, you don't have a right
to be protected from cultures you don't like. You only have a right to be protected from individuals who commit rights violations. Let me say that again. You don't have a right to be protected from cultures you don't like. Your right is to be protected from individuals who violate your rights. But then you have to have probable cause. You have to show that they're going to violate your rights. And that's a proper right respecting government. It's not about hypothesis. It's not about speculation. It's not about probabilities. It's about, are they violating your rights? And if they are, put them in jail and throw away the key. And again, there are plenty of countries that are Islamic or where they are Muslims that don't have a lot of violence against women. Again, Israel is a good example. Israel has a very large Islamic population, and there's not a lot of violence against women because it's not tolerated legally. And culturally, Muslims in Israel have assimilated. Not completely, but they've assimilated to a large extent. One indication of this, by the way, one good indication of this, is Muslims in Israel have fewer kids than secular Jews. They've assimilated to such an extent now that they're not having a lot of children. Because, Western people, when they reach a certain wealth level, when they reach a certain standard of living, don't have a lot of kids. And Muslims, even Palestinians, are not having a lot of kids. I used to think Israel was screwed for demographic reasons. But it's not happening because they're becoming westernized. They like the wealth. They like the time that not having a lot of kids gives you. They like the self-interest. When I went to college in Israel, the Technion, the Israel Institute of Technology, I studied civil engineering. Half my class were Arabs. 3/4 of those Arabs were women studying civil engineering. They were women who were going to go into the construction business as engineers. These were women that you would want in your country. You would want to immigrate. They were productive, smart, engaging, westernized women. Were civil engineers. A lot of the doctors my father trained in medical school when he was a teacher in the medical school. He was the vice dean of the medical school. Were Muslims and Arabs, Israeli Arabs, westernized Arabs. Why would you not want them to emigrate? Ayaan Hirsi Ali from Somalia, pretty barbaric culture. Why would you not want her to emigrate? You have to judge people as individuals, not as members of a culture, members of a group, members of a tribe. All right, let me remind everybody, we're 200 short. So if you're listening to the show right now and you've not yet liked the show, if you're on Facebook or on Periscope, please go over to YouTube and just press the like button. We're almost at 300. We should be at 300 before I stop speaking right now in this stream. We're at 294. I need 6 likes just to get to 300. That would be terrific. So we've got a lot of people watching live. I know a lot of people are coming in and out. The people who are in, please like the show. If we get to 500, today, and I might have to talk and keep the show going until 9 p.m. Pacific time in order to get there. There we go, 301. If we get to 500, we get $500 from Adam Campbell. He's committed to $500. He didn't say how long the show needed to be. So I'll just keep talking until we get to 500. Please, don't let me talk forever. So keep liking the show. Keep getting that number up. Alex asks, as a regular restaurant patron, what is your approach, philosophy, if you will, to dealing with bad, slow service? I currently work in the industry and it's difficult during lockdown. Our service standards have suffered. It really depends. So I always take, as somebody who goes to a lot of restaurants, even during these times, I always take the context into account. Is the restaurant particularly busy? Is what do you call it? Are we during COVID? Is there an external circumstances which makes the slow service understandable or the bad service understandable? So you take all these issues into account in assessing the situation. And then, if the service is really bad and it's really slow and if the food is not spectacular, then I might not come back to the restaurant or I'll come back less frequently. If I think it's the wait staff's fault, then I might tip less or not tip at all. If I know the restaurants, I know some of the restaurants and I know the owners and stuff, then I might talk to the chef or talk to the owner and say, what's going on tonight? Things are really, really slow. But, in times like this, you got to be patient as somebody who goes to restaurants. And when I go to the restaurants I know the people. I thank them for being open. I thank them for continuing to service me. I thank them for the fact that they're willing to engage, and the business risk of being open, the corona risk of getting the virus, the political risk of being open and serving customers, and everything else. So I take the approach of always saying thank you. All right, Brian asks, I'm trying to go through the Super Chats live. At least with Google's Android, Epic has the capacity to create their own app store. I think that makes a lawsuit against Google even worse. Yes, Google provide, and think about it. Yeah, they might not like Apple, but they could go to Google. Google lets them create their own app store. They can even have their own app store. They just can't use it on an iPhone. If you want to use an iPhone, this has always been the case. Apple has always had a closed system. You want to use Apple. You want to engage with customers who use Apple. You've got to do it on their terms. And Apple, of course, has always made those terms clear up front. It's not ambiguous. Paul Revere says, the Fed is a private monopoly on our monetary system. I'm sure you'd say they're good to go as they print up our debt. No, but the Fed is not private. That is bizarre to think that the Fed is a private monopoly. The Fed is a government monopoly. You try printing money and competing with the Fed, what happens? You go to jail. Now, that is not a market-driven monopoly. That is a government monopoly. Now, it's more than that. The Fed is not private. The Fed is controlled 100% by government. Who appoints the Federal Reserve chair?
The government. Who appoints all the board members? The government. Who gets the profits? The Fed makes a lot of money. It's a very profitable enterprise. Who gets the profits? If it was private, you'd think that the private
people who owned it, the private banks who owned the Fed, would get the profits. No, the Treasury gets the profits. The Fed is a government entity that monopolizes money. And it is an evil entity. It is a bad entity. I believe in competitive money, in private banking, in zero, non-existent Fed, where every bank can issue money or every non-bank can issue money, and you get to choose which money you want to use, not the government. It doesn't dictate to you. And it doesn't print any money. All right, we'll keep with the super chats because otherwise it's hard. John says, my parents were Italian and Portuguese. You're lying. I never heard of domestic violence. I didn't say that the Italians committed domestic violence. I said that Italians joined the mafia. The mafia was primarily Italians in the early part of the 20th century, and primarily southern Italy. And I'm sure, so should we ban Italians because they joined the mafia? I don't know what show you were listening to. I never said the Italians committed domestic violence, but the fact is that, you know, by the standards of today, many immigrant populations at the turn of the 20th century committed domestic violence. I mean, men used to hit women. Do you know why prohibition was enacted? Prohibition was enacted in what was it, 1919? Prohibition was enacted in the early part of the 20th century because women lobbied heavily for prohibition, because men used to get drunk and come home and beat their wives up. Domestic violence was incredibly prevalent in America in the late 19th century, early 20th century, and it was what motivated the push to prohibit alcohol sales, and alcohol consumption. So it's not like if you have white skin, there's no domestic violence. The Italians, the Jews, the Portuguese, everybody. In those days, that was acceptable culture. And it changed. It changed because it stopped being tolerated. It changed because the value of individual life in our culture, in the West, was elevated, was taken seriously, and they were forced to assimilate. Jasks asks, what's the difference between criminals coming from state, like Oregon, to commit crimes in another state, Washington, versus them coming from another country? There is no difference. There is no difference. But you see, what the racists want to do is they want to paint whole races or whole cultures with a brush. They're anti-individualist. They're collectivists, right? So they want to paint whole people with a brush and then say, because of that, they're not allowed to come here. So antagonism towards Islamic immigration is not about the threat of terrorism. It's not about the fact that we're at war with Islamists. It's about the fact that they don't like Muslims, they don't like religion, they don't like the culture, and they don't like the color of their skin. So they want to ban them all, including the ones who are westernized, including the ones that would assimilate, including the ones that don't beat their wives. This is what nationalism, tribalism, collectivism leads to. It leads to brushing whole cultures, whole groups, whole nationalities, whole people with particular colored skins with one brush and excluding them. So it's a form of xenophobia as applied to a religion, in this case Islam. And again, today I'm against Islamic immigration because we're at war with them. Win the war, and I'm not against it anymore. But if the only way to defeat Antifa in Portland, Austin, etc., is not moral to impose violence in society, I don't understand that. The way to defeat Antifa is to arrest them for the violence they commit.
That is, it's okay to use violence in self-defense or in retaliation. But if Antifa was peaceful, then you would have no right to use violence against them. The reason we have to defeat Antifa. So if Antifa was peaceful, the only way to defeat Antifa was with ideas. Better ideas, more convincing ideas. If Antifa's violent, then the way to defeat Antifa is by use of violence in retaliation, because they started it. You never initiate force. So violence is never accepted in society unless it's in self-defense. And self-defense includes retaliation. Off topic, Brian says, remember to tip your friendly California rideshare driver when telling them that California regulations destroy their livelihoods. Yep, I'm with you. I would tip them. All right, we still got like 170 likes that we need. So if there are anybody on Facebook, anybody on any other platform that is listening to the show live, go over to YouTube and click the like button so we can get to 500. If we get to 500, then we get $500 from Adam Campbell. So we're 333. Of course, if you're on YouTube right now and you haven't liked the show yet, please like it. Doesn't cost you anything. It's just a click of a button on the thumbs up. I know we've got a bunch of people with thumbs down, but the thumbs up is more valuable. It helps with the algorithm. It helps promote the show. It helps the show get the show in front of people. And in this case, it gets us $500. So please, we got 333. We could do better than that. So click the like button when you can. Thanks. Let's keep going down, see if there are any other Super Chat questions. Otherwise, we'll go back to the prepared topics that we had. Let's see. All right, I think we're done with the Super Chat unless I missed anything. If I missed something, then just remind me in the chat here. All right, so Fortnite. California blackouts. You know, we're having rolling blackouts in California. Because it turns out that California doesn't produce enough electricity, doesn't produce enough power in the 21st century to fulfill the demand for power when it gets hot, which it does every summer. But this summer is particularly hot, so people are using the air conditioning more, and we can't keep up, can't fulfill the demands. Can't fulfill the demands. Now, why is it? Now, demand in California for power is very high. We have a lot of server farms, which are very high consumers of electricity. But very, very high demand during the summer for electricity. Most of us have air conditioning, and we use it, right? But why can't California produce enough electricity to serve that demand? And their answer is because of all these mandates for green energy. Windmills and solar panels and all this stuff. That instead of spending the money on actually producing electricity using natural gas, which is low emission, or maybe building nuclear power plants, instead California has been decommissioning nuclear power plants. Why? It's cheap, it's clean, it's efficient, and yet they've been decommissioning nuclear power plants in California just like they did in Germany. Another place that struggles to produce enough electricity to meet the needs of its people, to meet demand of the marketplace. So because of the green policies, because of the leftist nature of the state, and they're sucking up to the environmentalists, we keep building windmills and solar panels and stuff like that. And it just can't produce enough electricity that way. It's way too expensive, and you can't build enough windmills to supply enough electricity to fulfill the needs of California. So one other way in which California is drifting into oblivion, if you will, it's becoming more and more difficult to live here. Now, it's a great place. I've been here 2 days now, and California is great. It's new, it's clean, it's convenient, it's easy. Everything's available here, except electricity once in a while. When there are fires, they do rolling blackouts. And now when it's hot,
they do rolling blackouts. One of the richest places on planet Earth. And because of an ideology, the ideology of environmentalism, we can't produce enough electricity to fulfill the demand. Again, one of the richest places on Earth. We can't produce enough electricity to fulfill the demand because of an ideology. The ideology that hates progress, that hates economic growth, that hates success, that hates human beings and their need for more electricity. And that ideology is environmentalism. So, it's just pathetic and sad. It really is sad, because I know it's easy to make fun of California, but California is one of the most beautiful, nicest place you could imagine living. There are no bugs in California, for example. There are no mosquitoes, which you notice if you come from Puerto Rico. It's just the weather's fantastic. It's beautiful. People are friendly. It's just perfect. And yet they made it uninhabitable. Rolling blackouts, unbelievably high taxes, banning, they'll make it impossible to use Uber and Lyft. It's just slowly the destruction of this amazing state. Ryan asks, Alex Epstein's moral case for fossil fuels should be required reading in high schools, especially in California. Absolutely. Should be required reading everywhere. Everywhere. Every young person should have to read it. Stefan asked, have I been to the Biltmore Mansion? If so, what did you think? I don't think I have been to the Biltmore Mansion. I'm not sure what the Biltmore Mansion is, but I haven't been there. Why does Sam Harris refuse to engage objectivism when he's clearly aware of it on questions of mutual interest? I don't know. I think he doesn't think objectivism credible. I think he's probably also had some interaction with objectivists in the past that wasn't very productive for him, in a sense that they were probably obnoxious and not very nice and not very, engaging. And he won't do it, which is sad, which is really sad. All right, I wanted to talk about a few other topics about what's going on. Before I do so, we've hit 350, guys. 350, 150 to 500. I don't know where we'd find 150 people right now, but one way to get 150 people is to go out there and share the show right now. Share it and put hashtag Fortnite, put hashtag California Blackouts, put hashtag to get people over here, to get people to the show. Put it right now. So if you get people to the show right now, we'll get more share. We'll get more likes. The only way to get the likes up is to share. And one of the ways you could also do this is to go to Facebook and hashtag it on Facebook to like Trump 2020 or to like any big group out there. Go to their group and link to, and then if you're on Facebook right now, encourage people in the chat on Facebook to go to YouTube to like the show. So we got to make an effort. We're already at an hour and a half. I'd like to end this show in half an hour, so we can, so I can go get some dinner. But I don't know how we're going to make it in half an hour to 500. We're already at 358. So we're clicking up. It's steadily growing. It's steadily getting there. But we're still not where Adam Campbell wants us to be. He's promised $500 if we make it to 500 likes during this show. So I've got a few more topics to talk about. I thought I would talk about what is going on in, we've got some foreign policy ones. What did I want to do? Lebanon, Belarus, China. There was a fourth one. I can't remember what the fourth one was. I didn't write it down. But there's a fourth foreign policy topic I wanted to cover. And then, of course, any Super Chat questions that come about, I will answer them as we go through them. You promised you wouldn't SRP talking until we get... What's SRP? I don't know what SRP. I wouldn't stop talking until we get to 500. I'm trying, but it needs to speed up, guys. It needs to speed up. I can't, you got to help me out here. If you want this to keep talking, I have to think that there's a chance. So we need to get this number up. It's 362. We've got 140 to go. It's doable, but I need you to share. I need you to like if you're listening. I need you to really push through. This is like a telethon. We're raising money for Iran, right? I don't know. All right, let's talk about Lebanon. So there was an important decision today. Interesting. I told you this a little bit when we talked about Lebanon. About 15 years ago, a very, very popular Lebanese prime minister by the name of Harari was murdered in a car bomb that killed about 20 people. It was a massive car bomb. It was a suicide bombing. It killed about 20 people, and it killed the prime minister of Lebanon at the time, Rafik Harari, who was very popular. He was a billionaire, and he was really investing in turning Beirut into what it used to be, the Paris of the Middle East. At the time, Syria was occupying Lebanon, and at the time, Syria was still is aligned with Hezbollah. And for the last 15 years, everybody has basically known that the Syrians and Hezbollah murdered Rafik Harari. But supposedly you couldn't prove it. And the Lebanese army, the Lebanese government, couldn't stand up to Hezbollah. The Syrians, indeed, under intense international pressure after the Harari bombing, were forced to leave Lebanon. So they left Lebanon, but of course Hezbollah left there. It was left in Lebanon, and Hezbollah is the most powerful military force in Lebanon, much stronger than the Lebanese army. So, for 15 years, everybody has known it's the Hezbollah. Nobody could do anything about it. Lebanon couldn't do anything about it. The better forces within Lebanon. Of course, the reforms that Harari was putting in place, putting the economy on a better footing, and again, reestablishing Beirut as the central commercial place, all that went through the window. And today Lebanon is a basket place. It's poor. It's a complete and utter disaster. They've got 50% under the poverty line. They've had this massive explosion in the port. It's ineffectual. The governments are corrupt and ineffectual, and corruption is everywhere. It's horrific. Anyway, today a UN court, whatever the hell that is, a court assembled by the UN, tried four Hezbollah operatives. That's right. The other topic I want to talk about was Israel and UAE. They tried four Hezbollah operatives for the murder of Rafik Harari 15 years ago. And they found one of them guilty. And the other three, they didn't have enough evidence to convict him. So now we have a conviction that one of the Hezbollah operatives actually was partially responsible. Now, this guy is like a middle to low-end Hezbollah guy. Nobody at the top was prosecuted. Nobody in the Syria regime was prosecuted. This is the UN, after all. You couldn't have the UN actually go after people who actually are decision makers who actually did something horrible. But at least now there's some view that it was indeed Hezbollah who did it, from a supposedly objective source, the UN. Will this have any impact? We will see. I doubt it. Hezbollah will not turn this guy over. Hezbollah will not take responsibility for the attack. The Lebanese army is too weak to do the one thing that would save Lebanon, which is to disarm Hezbollah. And Lebanon is a basket case. Lebanon would stay a basket case. And it's just tragic and depressing. But I told you that I thought that Hezbollah, that one possibility of this bomb going off was not an accident. There was Hezbollah doing it to distract from what was going on. I don't think that's the case. I think this was an accident. And now the question is, will pressure be put on Hezbollah to turn this guy over? world pressure, more importantly, be put on Hezbollah to dismantle. That sole issue will determine the fate of the state of Lebanon. Everything else that people are talking about, interim governments, foreign aid, all this stuff, that's all BS. None of that will matter. Hezbollah, a terrorist organization, an Islamist, Shiite, Iranian-supported, Islamic totalitarian entity, needs to be shut down and dismantled. As long as it is alive, strong, powerful, and controlling the Lebanese government, controlling Lebanese politics, Lebanon is finished. All right, with 377, so we've got, 123. Now, we should be able to get 123 people here in the next 20 minutes to like the show. So, again, the way for those of you who just joined, 500 likes, we get $500. So try to get people to move over, to come here, share. Use whatever clickbait tactics you can to get them to press the share button. Go over to other platforms. Try to get them to come to YouTube. And once they're here, we can encourage them to share. We just went to 378, but we need to do much faster than that. Come on, I know that some of the 212 people who are watching right now have not yet clicked the like button. Please click the like button now. Now. Don't wait until you leave. Do it now. All right, a couple of super chat questions. First one was about Israel and UAE. Israel and the UAE signed a normalization agreement, kind of a step towards a peace agreement. There's never been a war, technically, or really, UAE has never sent soldiers to fight Israel. They don't really have not been engaged in formally, at least, as a government in supporting terrorism. They have supported terrorism, I think, through their private charities, but not through the government itself, right? Not through the government itself. So we're 382, but every time I stop and get 4 likes, that's not good enough. We have to get bigger numbers, which means we have to get more new people to watch. The key has to be to drive people to watch the show. And the more you like it, the less I'll start talking about it, right? The less I'll talk about liking and disrupt from the flow. UAE is this weird country in the Gulf of Arabia. It's opposite Iran, borders Saudi Arabia. It is comprised of a number of emirates. Emirates are little kingdoms where the emirate is like a king, and they have one emirate in charge. But basically, it's a kind of a federation of a number of these little kingdoms. It's not a democratic country. It's not a particularly free place. Women are not particularly treated well there, although I don't think it's legal to beat women. It certainly is not. Women are supposed to be covered up. But it's also places that encourage, like Dubai encourages tourism. So if you're a Western woman there, you can walk around without a veil. I don't think there's a particularly high risk of rape in Dubai for a Western woman. You can go to the beach. Women can wear bikinis at the beach. So it's a very mixed, weird situation. If you look at Dubai, the city, it's this amazing Western skyscraper-filled city built on oil money. There's a lot of money, obviously, in Dubai and in the other United Arab Emirates. All these emirates along the coast there are filled with money that was generated from oil. It is a place that wants to diversify. UAE wants to diversify away from oil. They realize that partially because of the hysteria over climate change, partially just because of the reality, they need to diversify their sources of income from oil. They can't just live off of oil. They need to provide real jobs to the people who live in their countries. They need to provide real incomes. They need to be really productive. And Dubai has tried to be a financial center in the world. They've tried to be an airport hub for the world, for traveling between, let's say, Asia and Europe and Asia and America. Dubai and the other Emirates there's a massive airport not far from Dubai that serves Emirates as an airline that is very well regarded in terms of service. They've tried to provide all that to try to diversify the economy. Or one way to diversify the economy is to, focus on new technologies. And for those new technologies, who better than to hook up with the Silicon Valley of the Middle East, the Silicon Valley of pretty much everywhere other than Silicon Valley, which is Israel. Israel is this amazing technology hub. Israel also has venture capital. It has advanced agriculture. It has advanced production. It has huge, benefits of trade to a place like UAE. What does Israel get from a deal like this? So UAE gets, what they get is access to Israeli technology, Israeli expertise, Israeli know-how, Israeli education, and Israel's, trade with Israel is basically the benefit they get. Israel gets the benefit of another supply of oil. It gets the advantage of having a supply of oil. Right now, Israel gets oil from the Kurds in Iraq. This is interesting. I don't know if you know this. But the Kurds in Iraq control significant oil fields in northern Iraq. They pump that oil through a pipeline that goes through Turkey, and then from Turkey it is shipped to Israel. But the Israelis are very worried about the Turks. They're worried about the fact that Turkey is moving more and more towards Islam, becoming more and more Islamist. And they're afraid that oil supply, the Turks would control it and could stop it if they wanted to hurt Israel. So Israel's trying to diversify its oil supply. And one way to diversify the oil supply is to get oil from the UAE, which this deal would allow for. So that's a huge benefit. The second thing that Israel is trying to achieve with this deal is legitimacy. So they want more and more Arab states to recognize them. The more Arab states recognize them, the more they are legitimate, politically, right? And the more they isolate the Palestinians. And indeed, the Palestinians are massively ticked off from this deal, because every country that signs a normalization or peace treaty with Israel is now not putting pressure on Israel, or is expressing in itself its opinion that Israel is a legitimate country. And the Palestinians' whole claim is that Israel is illegitimate, that Israel should not exist, that Israel is an occupying force, that even the non-West Bank, even Tel Aviv, is an occupation. And therefore the Israeli state should not exist. Every time an Arab country legitimizes the existence of Israel, it's like a slap in the face of the Palestinians. It's like one notch down. And indeed, I think that's the best thing about this deal. There will only be peace between Israel and the Palestinians when the Palestinians admit defeat. They recognize completely that Israel is a fact, that it will never go away, and it's somebody they would have to deal with, and indeed, it's someone they should emulate. Now, I think the UAE deal is a good step for the Arab world. It's a step towards westernization. It's a step towards the West. And, I forgot. The other thing that the UAE gets from this, and Israel gets from this, is they both have a shared enemy. And the shared enemy is Iran. The shared enemy is Iran. And both are afraid of Iran. UAE is very close to Iran geographically. Iranian missiles, Iranian troops can easily reach the UAE. The UAE probably has Shiite minority population that the Iranians can rile up and cause problems. So the UAE wants weapons and technology from Israel, and Israel will have to decide what kind of technology and what kind of weapons they're willing to sell them. Israel, again, wants somebody closer to Iran to help with intelligence, to give them a forward base, potentially, to deal with the Iranians militarily. So a big part of this is dealing with Iranian Islamism. By the UAE signing a deal with Israel, recognizing the threat of Iran, is just one small step for the UAE away from its own tendency towards Islamism, towards jihadism, towards radicalization. Of course, the big deal will happen when and if Israel signs a deal with Saudi Arabia. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I think that's way into the future because the Saudis are still dominated by the Wahhabis. The Wahhabis still dominate the spiritual life, and therefore they control the political life through religion. And the Wahhabis are not going to want... Wahhabis realize that a deal with Israel is a move towards secularization, a move towards westernization, and a move away from Islam, a move away from Wahhabis. And they will do everything they can to stop a deal with Israel. There's lots of unofficial communication between Israel and the Saudis. There's lots of communication, negotiation, trade, covertly. The Saudis, particularly this Saudi Crown Prince, is friendly towards Israel. Against, they have a shared enemy, Iran. But to actually formalize a deal, too dangerous for the Saudi princes. Too dangerous for the Saudi regime. Brian, thank you. And hey, 97 likes to go, guys. 97 likes. And I'm getting exhausted here. So I need your help. For those of you who've joined, I know a number of people have joined. We're trying to get at 500 likes. If we get 500 likes, Adam Campbell has promised to contribute $500 to Yaron Brook Show. $500. So if you're watching the show and you like it, even a little bit, somewhat, then please press the like button. The faster we get to 500, the sooner I get to eat dinner. The sooner I stop talking. This is going to be already the longest show I've ever done, but I really would like it not to go to 3 hours. I'd like to get us to get to 500 over the next 10 minutes. Probably won't happen, but let's do it. Let's get the number up, right? $1,000? He didn't promise $1,000. He promised $500. Did he just say he'll increase to 1,000? I don't know. Anyway, if you're listening to the show right now on another platform, on maybe Facebook, or please go to youtube.com/Yaron Brook, to my channel. Go to the live show and press like. I don't think we're counting the likes on Facebook and Periscope, although we should. I don't know if Adam would consider that, but it's 409 now. We've got 90 to go. It's doable. But and for those of you who are listening and those of you who are fans of the show, committed to the show, please go out there and share the show. Go on YouTube. Try to get Twitter. Go on Facebook. Try to get people to come over here so that we can get their likes. That would be huge. Huge, huge, huge. Alan Kickout Canucks says, I'll give 2 likes if we can ban Canadian immigrants. No, I like Canadians. I like Canadians, or put it this way, I in particular like Canadians who come to America and leave Canada. I mean, think about what that says about them, that they're willing to leave Canada. So, I don't know why you want to ban Canadian immigrants. I want to ban Canadians. I want to actually take over Canada. I think Canada should become part of the United States. I don't understand why we need a Canada. Oh, those of you, the Democrats would really win then, right? Really win then. All right, we're at 418. We're getting there. Okay, Trevor asks, Ayn Rand was at odds with Milton Friedman, describing him as a communist. Is her charge valid? Did not Milton red pill a generation? I don't think she ever called him a communist, at least not to my reckoning. She did not like Milton Friedman, and I think you can see by the fact that in spite of his red pilling a generation, we didn't get where we need to go. In spite of his popularity, in spite of how much he did, in spite of his books, in spite of the millions of people who've watched his videos, we're not where we need to be. And the reason is, she claimed, was that he undermined the moral case for capitalism. He did not make the moral case for capitalism, and he often dismissed that there needed to be a moral case for capitalism, or he, instead of, and I've said this many times, imagine if Milton Friedman and von Mises and Hayek understood that there was a role for economists and a role for philosophers. That the role for philosophers was to defend capitalism morally, to provide the moral foundation for capitalism. That the economist's job was to protect it and to prove its efficacy from an economic perspective. And that each one had a role, and each one was important. And if the free market economists had recognized that Ayn Rand was the best, in a sense the only, defender of capitalism from a moral perspective, if they'd encouraged their followers to engage with Ayn Rand's ideas, if they'd encouraged their followers to engage with a moral, philosophical defense of capitalism, and not just do economics, then I think we would be decades ahead in our fight for freedom, in our fight for liberty, in our fight for capitalism in America. By focusing only on the economics, and by poo-pooing Ayn Rand, and by dismissing the philosophy and a philosophical defense of capitalism, poo-pooing the need for such a defense, they did enormous damage to the cause. They did enormous damage to the progression of liberty and the progression of freedom. And that is sad, and that's what I've got against Milton Friedman. I wish Milton and Mises, and at least Mises was friendly to Ayn Rand. Hayek wouldn't even read her books. He completely dismissed her. If only those people had recognized that they need a philosopher, and that Ayn Rand was it. Decades ahead, we could see. Instead, and by the way, libertarians still do. The free market economists still make the same mistake. They trivialize Ayn Rand. They say they like the books, but they don't take her seriously. They don't teach her. They don't advocate for her as the source for the moral defense of capitalism. And if they did it today, we would be such a bigger movement. So, I'm a fan of Milton Friedman's. He's a great economist. He was flawed in certain respects, even economically, but he was a great economist, and he taught a lot of people important lessons about economics. And he was a great communicator of economic principles and economic ideas. A great communicator of those ideas. So a lot of people learned free market economics from Milton Friedman. So I'm a huge admirer of his from that perspective. So he did red pill a generation on economics. But the battle is not in economics. The battle is in philosophy. The battle is in morality. And that's what we need. We need the philosophical defense of capitalism. The moral defense of capitalism. And that's what you get on this show. On the Yaron Brook show. And that's what you get even better in Ayn Rand herself. All right, we're at 423. Can I get a 425 just from the people who are on right now? 2 likes. Come on. You guys can like it. If we get to 500, we've got a contributor who is going to give $500 over Super Chat for just hitting 500 likes. We're so close. So close. 77 likes, and we make it. And can we get 2 right now? No. People left, and they didn't. Oh, there we go. We got the 2. All right, thank you. Why are liberty ideas movement so weak in France as opposed to the UK and other English-speaking countries? Is it a remnant of the failed French Revolution? In a sense it is, but it's bigger than that. It's the difference between Anglo-Saxon countries and continental countries. Anglo-Saxon countries were influenced heavily by, somebody who liked it then unliked it. We went from 425 to 424 and then 6 unlikes. So I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, it's a good question. It's a really good question. There's a lot to say about this. I'm not going to say a lot right now. I'm too hungry. But I can't eat until we get to 500. So let me say this. Europe basically, the two schools of European philosophers, you could say. There's the continental school, which is primarily the Germans, Rousseau and the Germans. And Rousseau and the Germans I mean Kant, Hegel, Schopenhauer, Marx, Nietzsche, the whole evolution of kind of romantic German philosophy. You can't keep adding conditions. No, I'm kidding. But we could get to $500 if a bunch of people just did a $5, super chat contributions. That would be great. That's what Adam is proposing. 100 people do a $5, and then we could get to 500. But we still need to get to 500 likes, because that's another 500. That would get us 1,000 for the show. That would be pretty cool. So you've got the German philosophers and Rousseau, who are fundamentally collectivists, fundamentally anti-reason, fundamentally anti-enlightenment. And even though there were important Enlightenment figures in France, Diderot, Voltaire, and many others, France was a center for Enlightenment thinking, crucial to Enlightenment thinking. In France, it turned out that Rousseau dominated. Politically, Rousseau set the stage. And the most influential philosophers on French philosophy, and you can see that with the existentialists and the postmodernists, were the Germans. So the Germans landed up to having the most influence on French philosophy and on the whole of Europe, the philosophy of the whole of Europe. So collectivism in mainland Europe, collectivism, altruism, and anti-reason were the dominant forces. And that's why France, Germany, and all of Southern Europe and into Eastern Europe are not pro-liberty and pro-freedom. There's no pro-liberty and pro-freedom real forces. And some in Eastern Europe because of the experience of communism. Northern Europe, Southern Europe, there's nothing. On the other hand, in the UK, the voices that dominated tended to be the Scottish Enlightenment. Adam Smith, Locke, Hume, and then Mill and others, right? Those were the dominant philosophers. Philosophers who were much more inclined towards individualism, much more inclined towards political freedom, much more inclined towards respect for reason. So, those countries in the world that were influenced by the Anglo-Saxons, by the Scottish Enlightenment, primarily Locke and on, but also by the 19th century British philosophers who were just better than the continental ones. Better in a sense of freedom, and not better in a sense of philosophy. They were actually pretty bad. That's why ultimately the Germans win everywhere. That's why there's more openness to liberty ideas. France is continental, influenced by Germans. England is much less influenced by the Germans, much more influenced by its own British philosophers, but primarily from the Enlightenment, the 19th century, who were much more pro-liberty. All right, we've got 66 to go. Right, I know a bunch of people just joined. If you could like the show, it would be fantastic. We're trying to get to 500 likes. If we get to 500 likes, we get $500 from Adam Campbell. $500 for 500 likes. We're almost there. Please help us get over the hump. I'm going to lose my voice here soon. Zach, thank you. That is amazingly generous. That's terrific. Michael, thank you. Corey, that's Australian dollars, I guess. There's some more. Keep going. Believe me, you're providing more value than you know. I appreciate that. I really hope that is the case for most of you, and that the likes are real likes. The likes based on the fact that you like the show. All right, let's keep going with the super chats. Let's see where I know there were more here. I just have to go slowly. There's Brian. All right, come on. We're 435, so 65 likes. We can do this. Go over to other platforms, link to this show, encourage people to come over and help us raise $500. Okay, Ryan has a question. Can you see Russia using the unrest in Belarus? Great, I was going to talk about those. To push west, annexation. I read that U.S. troops were moved from Germany to Eastern Europe. Is a standoff coming? Listening from Canada. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for the support. Maybe. So here's the thing. I think the fate of Belarus right now is in the hands of Putin. If Putin commits to the dictator of Belarus that he will come to his support, that he will send troops in, then I think the guy will stick with standing up to the protests, and will put police and military in the streets, will get violent. If Putin is evaluating here, right, it's not clear how Putin is actually going to act. Now, an option is that Putin uses this unrest to invade Belarus. Now, Putin is already quite far west because he's in Ukraine, he's in Crimea, he's in other places. But Belarus would be a nice place. Now, I don't think you'd get a standoff with the West because Belarus is not part of NATO. The West is not committed to defending Belarus. And I know Putin knows this. The real question is, does he want to antagonize the Belarusian people? Does he want to open up another front for potential civil unrest and civil war in Belarus? He's already got his own problems in Ukraine. So I don't think so. I think it's easier for Putin to keep the current dictator as a dictator because the guy's in his pocket anyway, right? The dictator in Belarus does whatever Putin tells him anyway. So I think it's easier for remember, Russia's also a poor country, dependent completely on energy, a very undiversified economy. It's not like Putin has a lot of resources to access. So he is much better off letting the current dictator in Belarus take care of this than invading himself. But we will see. I mean, there's some rumors are saying that Putin is basically backing off and is going to let the people overthrow this guy. I hope that's the case. I hope the people of Belarus overthrow their dictator and we get one more relatively free country in Europe. Of course, the experience of Ukraine is that even when you get more freedom, it's so hard to overcome the corruption that's been instituted in your political infrastructure because of communism or because of authoritarianism. But I wish the people of Belarus well, and I really hope that they're marching in the street right now, their demonstrations, their mini uprising will be successful, and they will see the overthrow of this dictator, and they will see a pro-West, pro-liberty, pro-freedom, at least to some extent, a person rise up in Belarus who will allow for things like free speech, which is just a basic individual right. Right? That's what I'm hopeful. So at the end, I don't think Putin's preferred solution is invasion. And I don't think it'll lead to a standoff with the West because the West doesn't want to go to war with Russia. Russia doesn't want to go to war with the West. And nobody's going to go over to war over Belarus. If Russia wants to go to war, it would invade, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, who are members of NATO. All right, let's see. What's the next super chat? Bunch of money coming in. I like this. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Okay. Yeah. Message to text your friends to come over and like the show. We are 56 short. 56. It's very doable in the next... let's hope it doesn't take 25 minutes. I'm starving. I didn't prepare for this. I should have prepared. I didn't think we were going to make it, and I wasn't literally going to go until we made it. But You guys inspired me, so here I am. All right, let's see if there are any. I need questions because I need something to talk about. I was going to talk about this Chinese story. So if we don't have a question, I'll talk about it. Okay. M2 money supply. Oh my God. Technical questions 2 hours and 5 minutes into the show. Versus M2V, M2 money velocity. Which of these will actually lead to increased pricing? M2 has ramped up, but M2V has bottomed out. Thoughts? I mean, you need velocity to get to increased prices. So you need the combination, right? You need more money circulating, being used, being out there. The more it circulates, the more inflation in the sense of prices. The true definition of inflation is an increase in the money supply. But the way it's used in normal life and the way people measure its harm because they can see it, even though it's not true, is through prices going up. The real harm is in the distortion printing money creates in the world out there, in the economy as a whole, in the malinvestment, in the distorted prices, in the economic distortions that it creates. That's the real damage that it does. But people fear and see rising prices. To get rising prices, you need velocity to go up. Not only them printing money, but velocity to go. So both have to be up. You need a both increase. And until that happens, you won't get significant inflation, price inflation. All right, Justin asked, is it true that BB's government allows and confiscates illegal settlements in Palestine? And if so, what's your opinion of that matter? I'm not sure exactly what you mean. But I guess what you're asking is, let me try to interpret it. Is it true that Bibi's government allows for the confiscation of private Arab land in the West Bank for the establishment of Jewish settlements? If that's what you mean, then no, then it is true. And it's not just Bibi's government. Past Israeli governments have done the same thing. And it's wrong. And a proper government, would not confiscate private property. Now, if there's land in the West Bank that's not privately owned, then it's for grabs for whoever develops it. But if Palestinians develop property, and then the Israelis just take it from them, that is wrong. And there should be restitution in some future state, financial restitution, other restitution to Palestinians who can prove that their land was stolen from them. That's true. Just to develop, not as not because these particular Palestinians were violent against Israelis, not because the land was necessary for self-defense against violence, but because they wanted it to start settlements. That is immoral. It should be illegal. And in some cases, the Israeli Supreme Court has ruled against the Israeli government and have forced them to back down. So it depends on the circumstances. But no, I don't. I am far from justifying everything the Israeli government does. Who do you admire more, Papa or Rothbard? Well, yeah, given that Rothbard is on the lower rung of hell, it would be Papa. I don't admire either one of them. But Papa is far better than Rothbard. Primarily because the damage he did to Ayn Rand, the damage he did to the libertarian budding free market movement, the corruption he embedded within the new free market libertarian movement that was coming around in the 1960s and 70s. So Rothbard, I wouldn't say admire. Who do I hate more? I hate Rothbard more. I don't hate Papa. I just think Papa was very wrong and did a lot of philosophical damage to the cause. But that's for a whole different show with a philosopher. All right, guys, we need 51. I need a massive push here to get this done so that I don't just... 51 likes. If we make it to 500, likes, I get $500 from Adam Campbell. We need one more like to get to 450, and then we need 50 beyond that to get to 500, right? not 450 more likes. We don't have to go to 900. We got to 450. We need 50 more likes. 50 more likes. I know a bunch of people, like 7, 8 people just joined the show. Please go in there and just click the like button. I'll stop talking about it if you do it. Just click the like button just to get me to shut up about it. Right? And of course, you can join in supporting the show by going to the Super Chat and contributing some money. Daniel asks, is it immoral to claim VA benefits if you're a veteran? Of course not. VA benefits are part of the contract that you signed when you joined the military. It was part of the understanding. Now, in a rational society, would veterans get VA benefits? Yes, some. If you were injured in combat, you would get veterans benefits. Joining the Army is a big deal. And you should be compensated in a major way. And it can't all be because of the risk you're taking. It wouldn't be all monetary. Much of it would be in a guaranteed, if you will, safety net for once you leave the Army because of the risks that you take mentally and physically for being in the Army. So I think it's a contractual issue. And absolutely you should take the benefits. Are there any private primary schools run by objectivists? Yes. Or based on objectivist principles? If not, any ideas on why not? Yes, the largest Montessori delivery company in the world today is run by objectivists. And there are a number of others. Just look objectivist private primary schools. There are a bunch of them. So yes, there's a lot of energy going into that. A lot of energy going into developing curriculum. There's a company that developed curriculum for science for schools, and it's in thousands of schools now. Thousands of teachers are using their curriculum. So there's definitely is a lot of emphasis among objectivists in doing entrepreneurial activity around education and around schools. Okay, let's see. What are the other Super Chat questions? Yeah, though I'm only asking the Super Chat question, make them easy. What do you think of the Godfather movies? I think they're brilliantly made. I think they're amazingly acted. The story's engaging. We got a bunch of new people who've just joined. If you join now, we're trying to get a 500 likes. We're at 459. We need 40. If you would join in liking, we'll get to 500 faster. If we get to 500, somebody will contribute $500 to the show. So please click on the like. There we go. Click on the like. We're at 461. We need 49 more. I like the Godfather movies in terms of, they show what happens when you evade reality. They show what happens when you live the life of a gangster. They show what happens when you live an immoral life. They show the consequences of that really, really, really well. Really well. I don't like them in the sense that there's no good guys in them. So they're not super enjoyable movies. But they're very good tales of morality if you know what to take from them. I also think they're amazingly made. The scene in Godfather 1 and then Godfather 2 where everything kind of closes. And Godfather 3 actually has the same element, the gimmick, where everything is kind of closed. All the circles that were opened, all the plot lines that were opened during the movie close all with one, and usually with an operatic theme behind it. Just stunning, just amazing. So the filmmaking is amazing, the acting is amazing, the story is excellent. A great morality play, although there's no good guys. So it's all about condemning evil without really showing us what the good guys are. But I like the fact that it shows the Al Pacino character who enters the family reluctantly but gets draws in. And his life, he dies at the end of, he doesn't die, but he's at the end of Godfather 3. Everything he's touched has been destroyed. Everything he loves has been destroyed. Everything his values has been destroyed because he succumbed to the life of a mafia. So there's great beauty in projecting that theme, which is an incredibly important theme. Life is a slippery slope. It is a slippery slope. If you violate the principles of morality, life becomes hell. Slowly and systematically hellish. All right. Those of you who are watching who haven't liked the show yet, please like it. If we get to 500 likes, we get $500 from Adam Campbell. We're at 469, so we only got 31 to go. I'd like to get that done in the next 15 minutes because I'm dying to eat something. I'm starving. So 31 likes in 15 minutes. That's 2 likes a minute. Let's do it, right? Let's make it happen. We're at 468 right now. We keep adding people, losing people. I don't know how that all works, but please like the show. I know we just had a bunch of people join and listen. Believe me, it's a good show. You should like it, even if we don't have time. All right. Adam Campbell says that I got my inflation definition of Peter Schiff. I knew the inflation definition before I knew anything about Peter Schiff. It's just easy to slip into the conventional way in people use inflation. I just need to remind myself to always go back to that definition. All right, Jason asks, 50 Canadian dollars. That's very generous. Thank you. Peter Schiff predicted a collapse. What else is new? And suggests buying foreign assets in gold. Hypothetically, if you were in the late 20s and sitting on a lot of savings and is about to start investing, how would you approach this? I mean, I would approach it by diversifying. I would put a certain quantity of money in gold. I would put the vast majority of what I had, I would put in equities. I would put it in, right now, given market conditions, I would put it in value stocks and stocks that are relatively cheap. I would not put it in the high-flying stocks. I think there's a good chance that they come tumbling down. If value stocks go up in value and growth stocks, what are called growth stocks, come down in value, I would then shift and invest in technology because I think that is the future. But right now, I think technology stocks are way too expensive. But I would invest in value stocks. I would be heavily diversified. I'd put something like 10 to 20% of my assets into gold. And the rest, I would be aggressive if I was in my 20s. Over the long run, stocks have, over the last 100 years, outperformed anything else. So why would you think the next 100 years would be dramatically different? Unless you think the world is coming to an end. I don't see the end coming. What happened to California that made it so dominated by leftist ideas? What's the historical context behind that? I mean, every place that cultivates the mind, every place that has a significant number of intellectuals, every place that has a strong university system, and that the intellectuals at the university system are dominant within its culture, turns left. The left dominates philosophy. It dominates intellectual pursuits. It dominates universities. And therefore, any place like Massachusetts or California or Seattle or Austin, Texas or New York City, any place that has a lot of universities and a lot of intellectual-minded people, people who read, people who go to school, people who study, people who learn, is going to be leftist. Because they dominate, the left dominates intellectual pursuits. They just do. I don't know, 80% of university professors are leftist. 90% of journalists are leftist. People who identify themselves as reading a lot, engaging in intellectual pursuits, tend to be leftists. And they tend to shape the culture around them. So, because philosophy is being dominated by the left, and that the right, the conservatives, they go into business, they don't go into ideas. And they're not interested in ideas. Conservatives are generally not interested in ideas. They're interested in action. They're interested in spirituality, not real ideas. The left dominates the sphere and therefore dominates those geographic areas that have a dominance of people who tend to be intellectual. Why am I wearing this? Oh my God. All right, we'll get better at the second show. Next show we'll get better. Don't know why I had those. Let's get some shoes. That refers to an inside joke from a previous show. Oh, we got a bunch of new people who just joined again.
please like the show. If we get 500 likes, we're only 25 short. I'm sure there are 25 people right now watching the show who haven't liked it. If you like it right now, the show gets $500 for one of our listeners. We get it from Adam Campbell. We'll write a check for $500, not a check. He'll do a super chat to the Yaron Brook Show if we can get 500 likes. And we're 24 away. And I know, there are 30 people out there who are listening right now because they've just joined, who have not liked the show yet. And if you just go to your screen, you just click on that like button, then we can get this telethon, marathon over with. And I can go and get something to eat. And I promised improved sound and improved video for next time. How much will continued mob violence in Portland and other places help Trump in the election? A lot. I've said this before. The more violence, the more mobs, the more riots, the more crazy leftist ideas are out there in the streets, the more they're articulated, the crazy leftist ideas, the more they're emphasized, the more chance Trump has of getting reelected. Trump will get reelected if the populace is convinced that the choice is between Trump and AOC, they will vote for Trump. If they really think that Biden represents a centrist, moderate position, then they will vote for Biden. But if they think Biden is captured by the rioters, by Antifa, by BLM, the American people will not stand for socialism. They will not stand for riots. They will not stand for anarchy. They will not actually stand for what the extreme left is for. That's why I've always said the extreme left can never win this country. They won't dominate the politics of this country. So, to the extent that people think that they're a power, they're real power, an efficacious power, they will vote for Trump. So the more riots, the more property destruction, the more BLM, the better for Trump. All right, we're just 9 away, 9 likes. Come on, people. 9, you can do that in the next 2 minutes. We can get that 9 done, and and we get the $500 from Adam Campbell. Capitalist Nick says, in a Democratic National Convention speak 30 minutes ago, AOC nominates Bernie Sanders for president. What do you think of her backstabbing? I think she's an idiot because this helps Trump. Well, no. No, it probably helps Biden, actually. It probably helps Biden. To the extent that Biden can distance himself from AOC, that's good for Biden. So AOC is an idiot, but in this case, she's helping the Democratic cause. We're 2 likes away. We're going to hit 500. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're doing it. Wow. That's amazing, guys. So I think AOC is helping Biden by doing that because it helps distance Biden from her. She might have been, the Biden campaign might have given her something in order to do it. Did your kids like the show? Call them live. I'm not sure whose kids. My kids. We're still missing those 2, so don't give up. We still need those 2. We still need the 2. Come on. Who's going to be the 500th like? Who's going to be the 500th like? Yaron, okay, thank you, Richard. Wrote me in Hebrew. Have you seen Avatar? I hated that movie. The Last Airbender yet. I haven't seen the Avatar, The Last Airbender. I hated the original Avatar. I won't see the Avatar movies. I don't know what this one is. The Last Airbender yet. Avatar, The Last Airbender. I'll look it up. Yes, we crossed 500. We crossed 500. Sorry, guys. I'm going to stop answering questions just because I'm too hungry. What is your favorite film or series that has a theme or philosophical message with which you agree? I'll have to... I mean, This Land Is Mine. This Land Is Mine. But there's a bunch of them. We'll have to catch up on these another time because I really do have to go eat something. All right, guys, we did 2 hours and 24 minutes. We got to 500 likes. I don't know how much money we raised during the show up until this point. I don't see Adam Campbell. Where's the $500, Adam? Adam Campbell should be doing the $500 any minute now. I think we probably did a bunch of other, a few $100 beyond the $500 on top of that, and people are still giving, so that's great.
Thank you, everybody. We can do a show where I just talk about movies and take your questions about movies. I apologize for not being able to answer the other questions, but I'm wiped out. So if I've got the excuse of reaching 500, I'm going to jump off. And I'm waiting for Adam Campbell. I'm waiting for Adam. Did Adam leave before we actually saw whether we reached 500 likes? I mean, that's okay. He'll pay. He might do it through there's Adam doing 50. PayPal sending the rest because I am maxed at 50 on my phone. Congrats. I'm good for it. Yeah, I know Adam's good for it. So Adam will do 500 on, or the rest on PayPal. All right. Thanks, everybody. That was great. I hope you had fun. I hope you didn't mind my pestering you about liking the show. Once in a while, doing a telethon is not a bad thing. It's pretty good, pretty cool. Stephanie got a screenshot. That's great. You might want to share it. Send me an email or something. Thanks, everybody. I will see you on Thursday. Thursday, same time, same place. Hopefully, we'll sort out some of the technical issues by then. Somebody should let me know what the sound was like after that period where there were glitches. If the sound is being bad or was okay for the rest of the show. Bye, everybody. Thanks again for being with me today.